All right, I'm doing Sonny's Blues tonight, and this is by James Baldwin, one of the just formidable figures of the American 20th century, men of letters. Probably a better essayist actually than a fiction writer, but he has produced some terrific fiction too. Some of his great essays, The Fire Next Time, Notes of a Native Son. The whole book actually is great, but it's the title essay could be the greatest articulation of what it's like to be on the receiving end of racism and prejudicial thinking that has ever been penned. I mean, it's so good. And anyway, and as is the topic of this, and in Baldwin, you get several things with Baldwin. You get this just exquisite articulation that he has. And maybe some of my students find him a little long-winded, but I think he's fine. And but also you get this oppressive sort of sadness in James Baldwin. Again, James Baldwin's a black man, and spending much of his time anyway in Harlem, 1940s something. Um, and again, he tells stories of not being served in restaurants and things like that. And again, Baldwin is an important, almost a weird, almost had a Forrest Gump like or Zelig, Woody Allen Zelig sort of presence in the. The civil rights, major civil rights actions and figures, especially of the 20th century. He was personal friends with Medgar Evers. He was personal friends with Malcolm X. He was a terrific orator too. Baldwin. He would give a lot of speeches and talks. And he looked down one day. There's Malcolm X in the front row, and they became friends after that. He was also friends with Martin Luther King Jr. So boy, he and by the way, I think he was in the first five pews of all three of their funerals. Baldwin again a very important figure and just a man of remarkable articulation, and also just he was a gay man too. Gay and black in 1940 something, Harlem, New York, not easy. Yeah, he spends much of his time in France as an expat after that. Maybe that's enough biography for now for Baldwin. Um, let's see. We begin this right. Is our narrator is on a train, and there's a lot. There's this a recurring image that sort of weaves through the entire piece, right, with the darkness roaring out. And there's a great image of the train, early morning train, right? It's still dark out, and the darkness is sort of roaring outside. Later, when his mother tells him the story of how his father or no, one of his uncles were killed by a bunch of drunken white guys chasing him with a car. It was probably an accident, but they sort of hit him, recklessly, and then took off. She basically, boy, it wasn't ever, as far as your father was concerned, every white man he ever saw after that might have been the one that killed his brother. And boy, there's a lot of pregnant lines, it's just weighted, it's just heavy lines like that in this. And as she's telling him that story, the darkness is gathering into the kitchen window. Again, the darkness, the oppression, the depression of it can be it kind of just get into your chest, this story, and it can really sort of, it just feels heavy, right? And anyway, we have a you get two brothers, and they're very different, right? He's become a mathematics teacher, which is not a bad job, by the way, for a black man in 19. Well done in life almost. That he got that far, because not too many people. I think I bet not too many of his neighbors in Harlem even did that. I mean, that it was a time when life got the better of most men in that in the inner city of America. So anyway, he's a mathematics teacher. There's obviously a certain amount of talent and sort of brains in this family. But his younger brother becomes a jazz musician. He also becomes a heroin addict, and he has all kinds of problems. And the other thing you get so you get this again, this darkness that constantly keeps coming back, and you do get this just sort of weight and a lot of sort of that language sort of describing that of the young, especially the young men. And there's a great when he's on his way to the train and he sees his brother's name in the paper. And he's been, busted with a bunch of other guys, somewhere in the Greenwich Village, in a heroin bust. Um, and he sort of lost touch with him. He ends up in jail. The narrator's daughter dies while he's away, and eventually, there's some flash. But when we end up at the story, is when Sonny, who is his brother, um, is getting out, and again, that's where we get the name of the title of the story, Sonny's Blues. And there's this sort of blue note, and boy, music. And music plays is a sort of almost another character. Music in general, and how important it is to the black community, and I guess what Cornel West would call the blue note. And boy, it has always been the sound of sort of salvation and making it through the night, and hanging on for that better tomorrow. The hope has always been, again, as has religion, by the way, and again, Christianity. The reason. Paul was able to proselytize this all through Europe, right? Was the selling point is that just behave here, be a good person, and you get everlasting bliss on the other side. You can see, and then even the story, right, with the oppressed Israelites were really God's chosen people, and boy, you can see why black folks, to Christianity in this country, they must have seen themselves as the American sort of Israelites, right? And anyway, and the music has always been sort of intertwined, and so intertwined with the black religious experience, and so again. It is their longing and their hope sort of put to sound, but there's always the hopelessness to deal with, and Sonny does his the brother's way of dealing with this has become a mathematics professor, not professor, but a high school teacher, and you can see again that is his way. He has his little piece of the world, and he keeps it orderly, and he does what he's supposed to do, and he manages to keep a roof over his children's heads, and does and is living a completely justifiable, even honorable life. And as he's leaving, but Sonny is on his mind that day, and as he's leaving school, he and he can hear some of the older kids sort of taunting one of the other teachers, kids who are maybe getting a little bigger, getting a little angrier, and there was one line he had, they're hitting their head off the ceilings of the low expectations that was out there waiting for them. There was a lot of lines like that, and just you can just see that young men, if not given a path, some sort of a aspiration to pour their testosterone and everything into, often will start doing very destructive things. And it's just like artists, if they don't find that creative outlet, will be very self-destructive. Again, his way, he's not a particularly creative person, the narrator. He's decided to be kind of neat and orderly sort of man. And again, keeping his sort of world small and controllable is the way he deals with the chaos. And again, the chaos being, feeling like you don't have control. And again, if you were a black man in 1940 something, Harlem, you don't feel like you don't have the freedom that white people have. Fine, you're not in the Jim Crow South, or much less slave, but you're not equal, and there's still housing discrimination. Bank, hard to get a loan from the bank. A million different ways you're unequal, and again, he the narrator, does what he does. But Sonny is his brother, who's a dreamier sort and a talented sort, and there's something he's got a bit of a shine on him, Sonny. But and he decided he was going to be a musician or bust. And again, music itself, we get, and in the beginning, as he's hearing, the rough kids, from the schoolyard, sort of, as he's making his way, kind of packing up to leave for the day, he hears this one kid whistling, right? And it's this gorgeous little note that almost sounds like a bird, and it's just a beautiful sort of image, and obviously, somewhat reminiscent of Sonny himself and what he wants to be, right? And sort of this light, gorgeous, a bit of beauty and sound sort of fluttering around, almost like a butterfly, the rough and tough sort of chaos of this sort of inner city school. Um, but Sonny hadn't been, doing so well. The narrator tried to help him, and but he was devoted to his art and to his music, and was willing to suffer all he needed to 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 have it. And again, his we get a few other. Every time, there's another scene where he's walking down a sidewalk and he sees, and again, it's just a bar, and people in that bar, and the waitress in there who's sort of or maybe it's just a female patron, I'm not sure, but anyway, very form-fitting dress, and and sort of showing off her wares, but also sort of moving and swaying to the music, and the men sort of flirting with her, just almost like the life principle itself, right? Sort of in that bar, sort of flowering, in this place, and everywhere you go, you see again people, and you just almost get the sense everyone's got this weight on them, and there's just this there's a depressive sort of oppressive. Sorry, an oppressive sort of depression, sort of it just almost like a cloud weighing down on everyone. In Harlem, it seems like it is the way this world is described to us, but. Music seems to be one of the few the bits of transcendence and beauty, almost like a flower, that's sprouting out of the crack, the crack in the asphalt or something, and and then we have that one scene where again the music and the religion kind of commingle, and it is it looks like a family, maybe two sisters and a brother or something, who are out in the street singing a song, and they're sort of panhandling as they do it, and they're singing gospel music, and he sees his brother go over and listen to him, and then kind of puts his throws him a few coins, kind of comes in, and his brother kind of he was like, boy, the amount of pain that woman had to have suffered to sing like that. And boy, if you wonder, I'm trying. There's actually if you ever, not all my young students have heard of Etta James. She's I'd rather go blind or something. Listen to one of those songs, or Nina Simone's. Jeez, I forgot the name of the song. Feeling Good. I'm sorry. Nina Simone is any of her music, but especially there's a song Feeling Good. And boy, you want to hear like a woman who somehow seemed to embody all the pain of the entire African American experience. Yeah, play that song sometime. You'll hear it. So anyway, throughout this is sort of going on throughout the entire story, and finally he's the brother he wants to understand his brother. They have trouble sort of connecting, and he's he's like, so what are you gonna do, heroin? He's like, why would you do heroin? And he's like, we all want to, we all want to escape. He's like, what, just to escape? That's sort of weak. He's like, you have your ways of escaping too, pretending, with your little, your neat little job, and you just get your tidy income, and it's just enough to get by. He's not doing so great as his brother. So he's like, you just don't like the way I'm doing it. Eventually, this story ends with the brother going to see Sonny play, and again he enters Sonny's world now, and there's a Creole man who I forget. I don't know if his name was given or not, but it's sort of it's a big booming sort of guy. And again, their father is dead. He seems to be a very much a sort of a surrogate father figure for Sonny. and sort of has kind of taken him under his wing, and and he sits there and he listens to his brother play, and his brother really is that, he really is good, and he afterwards and it's just sort of like, he seems to sort of be trying to understand, music itself, and how the man who creates music hears something different than the people that are listening to it, and they're imposing an order, upon the chaos as it hits the air, I think was the way he said it. And this is the sound of the suffering, and this is somehow the way you get through it. And at the end, he sends Sonny a drink. I don't think it was a White Russian, I think, or something like that. And he said it stood on the bar like the very cup of trembling. The cup of trembling was something, from the Old Testament. And, you give, I'm gonna have to paraphrase this, but I take the cup of trembling, from you, and I will give it to your enemy, and now everything you suffered, they will now suffer. So it is sort of this salvation, also a little bit of revenge mixed in there, and that is how this story ends, is with Sonny again, with that yearning, for transcendence, or for a world beyond the one he's stuck in.